Welcome to Roadmap to 1 Million. My name is Stacey Zeal, and if you're looking to make more money, gain your time back, and rapidly grow your visibility so that you can impact way more people with your brilliance, you're in the right place. This podcast is your one-stop shop for turning your online business dreams into a reality. My main goal is to give women entrepreneurs just like you the marketing strategies, guidance, and expert insights you need to hit that $1 million milestone and beyond. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, or an online brand that wants to make a big impact, Roadmap to 1 Million gives you the actionable strategies and inspiration you need so that you can implement right away, no fluff, no fuss. So CEO, are you ready to buckle up and accelerate your growth? Be sure to follow the show and let's dive in. Get ready to uncover your roadmap to 1 million. Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. Are you doing all the things but hit a revenue ceiling? You're building an audience, you're creating content and making sales, but you feel like something is holding you back from your next milestone. If that sounds like you, it's time to take our What's Your Missing Marketing Link quiz, your go-to tool to identify what's missing from your marketing strategy that might be holding back your business growth. Whether it's fixing your funnel or diversifying your efforts, this quiz will pinpoint those marketing missteps and guide you to success. Take the quiz today and uncover the missing link in your path to 7 figures and beyond. So head over to staceyzeal.co/quiz because success begins with identifying and fixing those mistakes. So don't miss out. Your business deserves to have the impact you desire. Visit staceyzeal.co/quiz. That's STACYZEAL.co/quiz to get a detailed report and the resources you need to help you grow. All right, let's jump back into the episode. Hey, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing that we're live. I'm excited to chat today. So if you are a business owner out there and you know that, you want to be more intentional with your finances, I'm so excited to partner with Patrice to really kind of talk about marketing and money and budgets and all the things that we definitely need to keep in mind for when we're moving through our journey as business owners and making sure that we end our years profitably and maintain profitable businesses and stuff like that. But before we jump in, would love to have you introduce yourself, Patrice, and then I'll introduce myself.
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Patrice Malloy. I am the Affluent CFO. I am here with Stacey, and thank you for the invitation, by the way, to just discuss money matters, right? So the importance of having budgetary items, if you are a business owner, the importance of following that budget so that you can, scale your business and you can be successful. And because obviously the point of being in business is to be profitable. So that is what I'm here to discuss today with Miss Stacey. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too, y'all. Let me tell you, I am someone who needs a budget. I am someone who's really just kind of like, decided this year that I'm really going to take a much more strategic approach with my money. And so Patrice and I had a conversation and I just was like, we just really need to talk about this because so many people, so many business owners don't understand that marketing costs money, y'all. Like marketing, even if you're like, oh, well, email is free. Nothing is free. It's either going to cost your time, it's going to cost you dollars. And so there are different channels that you can use like social media and email that are relatively free or inexpensive. But there comes a point in your business when you really have to start to invest in whether that's advertising, invest in support staff to help you with your marketing, investing in agencies or creative or branding or all kinds of different things that fall under marketing. And I want to make sure that we are making very strategic decisions. Before I jump in, I forgot to introduce myself. Hey, y'all, my name is Stacey. I am a fractional chief marketing officer, and I help online service providers and agencies to grow, to accelerate their growth strategically with strategic marketing planning, as well as Facebook ads training and Facebook ad setup. So I come into the place when we're talking about like, okay, like we have an actual marketing budget. And so now let's figure out how to effectively spend it. And Patrice is coming in where she's helping you set the budget and create the direction. So I think it's a really, really good dynamic here. So let's start by talking about like, when you're thinking about your marketing budget and your marketing money and numbers and things like that, like where should you start when thinking about creating a budget? Like where do we even start?
First and foremost, when you think about creating a budget, you need to make sure that you're paying yourself first. Because I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs and as business owners, we forget that we need to have money coming in to our personal account so that we can survive on a day-to-day basis. So I really recommend looking at what you have coming in on a monthly basis. If it's not necessarily consistent, come up with an average of how much money that you have coming in, and then look at some percentages. So for instance, maybe 20% is going to go to owners' contributions, or if you're set up as an S corporation, it's payroll. You want to have money set aside, for your taxes as well, because of the two most important things, right? You also want to have profit in there. I think it's very important that you have a profit account because you need to be able to reinvest back in the business. And then that's when you start to think about the expenses. So the marketing. So once you've kind of looked at those key areas first, those three, then you start thinking, how much can I set aside for marketing? So that's kind of how I work with clients and tell them to look at it. So if you have a lot of money coming in, fantastic. Obviously, your marketing budget's going to be a little bit bigger. If you're just starting, you still want to have at least, I'd say, $300 a month. Is that reasonable if you're starting for Facebook ads and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I love that you said that you should put it in percentages, because that's what I talk to people about as well. Especially like when I'm thinking about my clients or thinking about people like the number one question I always get asked, no matter whether I'm on a podcast, teaching something or whatever, when I'm talking about Facebook ads, people say it's like, how much do I need to spend in Facebook ads to be able to see success? And one of the things I always say is that I take two approaches. The first thing I do say is that you need to look at your marketing as percentages. And just like you were saying, breaking down like how much are you spending on profit? How much you saving for profit? How much are you putting aside for taxes? How much are you paying yourself? All of that stuff needs to come off first, right? Because then what you have left over, then you can start to really figure out like, what are the, where does it make sense for me to allocate my money? You may be doing a variety of different marketing activities that require a budget. And so with Facebook ads, I like to say, like, if it's a percentage of your, after you've taken out all that stuff that we talked about, look at your expenses and figure out what percentage you can allocate for ads. And I say that because one, if you are someone who's making, $10, $20, $30,000 a month, $500 is not, and ads is really not going to make much of a dent for you. It's really not going to, give you enough leads and enough momentum to make it make sense for your business, right? Like, yes, can you make it work with $500 a month? That's the minimum that I teach people to invest. Because people are always twisting my arm and saying, Stacey, I need a number. And so I'm like, okay, I like to say, $15 a day, which works out to be about $500 a month. That is a really healthy budget to really start with. But I need y'all to understand that if you're making a significant amount of money, then you're really not going to be able to compare it to all of the other activities that you're doing, because you're not spending enough money. So I think it's definitely important, like what you were saying, to make sure that we're spending enough money in our ads to actually see some results from it.
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. I one of the things that I read Profit First, I think sometime last year, I read it. And that was a game changer for me, to be honest, because I was like, okay, percentages work for me. If I know like what I'm aiming for, then I know, I can like look at the numbers and kind of break them down as percentage wise. So how do you help your clients really like approach just kind of like, creating a budget in general? Like, I know that marketing needs to be a piece of it, but we have so many other things that we need to spend money on, tools and software and all that kind of stuff. So like, how do we as business owners who may be not spending any money on their marketing right now, or not spending any money on advertising right now, what are some things that we could do to like prepare ourselves to be able to create that healthy marketing budget outside of, looking at how much you have coming in? Are there any kind of tips or anything that we can do to really kind of start to figure out, like, how do I create money for marketing if, my expenses seem to be all tied up?
So that's a great question. And I love the fact that you started talking about profit first and the percentages, because that is definitely what I teach my clients. So really focusing on honing in on those core accounts. So the income account, which is obviously where all the money comes into, and then having those distribution accounts. So like the pay for your owners, your owners pay, the taxes, the operating expenses, and then the additional income for things like savings or reinvestment back to the business, et cetera. So those are very important. So you do need to start with some sort of foundation. Another thing I like to do is go through the books. If you have your book set up, we look at areas where you're spending money needlessly, right? So if you have a whole bunch of maybe applications or subscriptions that you're applying, money to each and every month, can we cut down on those? Can we leverage that money for a marketing budget? Can we take away some of the other like unnecessary, costs that we're experiencing every single month that may not be contributing back to the business, or in essence, it's not bringing that return on investment that you're spending. So looking at those areas as well. And then we also look at the pricing of your packages or your services. Is it really returning, the value that you're giving to your clients or whatever it is that you're providing to your clients? So if that's something that's in question, we look at that as well. And we determine, do we need to raise the price? Do we need to look at the sales process? So there are a number of different things that we look at. And it's probably similar to you, as you're doing the marketing and you're setting up the different ads, like you're probably wondering, what kind of products and services do they offer? Who do you need to communicate with as far as their ideal audience? Who do we target, et cetera? So it's probably very similar to you, just on the finance side. That's how we kind of go about it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I will say, there are definitely nuances in different channels because, for example, LinkedIn is a lot more expensive to advertise on than Facebook. And so if we're thinking about, creating an ad budget specifically for, different channels, whether that's Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, I do take a similar approach when I'm like, okay, what can we cut out? Like, what are some things that we don't need to really kind of be focusing on or spending money on? And then what are the things that what are the differences in the channels? Like if we really want to make a splash on LinkedIn, we're probably going to need a higher budget than we would need for a Facebook ad, right? Because Facebook ads, even though people like to say that they're super, super expensive, in comparison to a lot of other ad platforms, are really not that outlandish from all these other ad platforms. I think we just kind of have to wrap our minds around spending money for accelerated growth or for accelerated visibility. And then one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how do we make that decision, or how do we go through that process, or how do you help your clients go through the process of really kind of balancing short-term initiatives and short-term spending versus long-term spending? Because that's one of the things that I'm definitely kind of like working with now. It's like, right now my immediate goal, hire a marketing assistant, hire a CFO, but I'm also thinking about other investments that I want to make down the line. Also thinking about like ads I need to spend money on. So how do we kind of like, as business owner, what are some tips that you have for us that are balancing that? Do I spend it now? How do I spend it later? Like, what are some things that you kind of coach your clients on helping them with that?
That's such a good question. So I think it's really identifying those types of goals and objectives. So is it something that's short term? Is it something that you need right away? Right? If it is, then we need to figure out, how do we move the money or shift the income so that we can get that handled right away? If it's something that can wait, that's when we look at those other accounts that we talked about. So putting the money in the savings accounts, putting the money in the profit account so that you can reinvest back into your business. You can start to leverage that to invest as, in retirement accounts, et cetera, as we're getting down the line, as we're getting older, as our business is growing, et cetera. So it's really thinking about what's needed right now and what is needed in the future. Obviously, like the marketing budget, you want to have money set aside for those retirement accounts. Do you have a solo 401k set up? Do you have, a Roth IRA? Like, what do you have set up that you can leverage that can also be used, right, to fund those long-term investments later on down the road? So it's really determining what's a priority, and then what can we maybe push a little bit, but still, as we're growing our businesses, save money towards that. Yeah. So that's kind of how I do it. So, is this a make or break type of thing?
Yeah, I love that, because there are definitely a lots of things in marketing when we think about like some things are nice to have and some things are need to have. And I think about things like, if you're thinking about what your immediate goal is or what you're like, and it's hard to definitely kind of balance that immediate goal versus the long-term goal. But when I'm working with clients as their CMO, one of the things we really kind of dig into is, where do we want to be, at the end of this year? Where do we want to be in the end of the next few years? And then where do we need to be this quarter or the next quarter in order to hit those goals? And so I say that because a lot of times we want to, as business owners, to divert our attention from something that's actually working in marketing to try something else, or to try something new, or try something fun and exciting. And yeah, that's cool. And we should definitely be testing and trying new things and, using new channels and things like that. But if I have a client that's saying like, hey, I am debating between investing the money to start a podcast versus investing in ads, my question is like, well, if Facebook is working for you, why are you diverting your attention and your time and your money to something that you haven't tested yet? Right? Like, if the goal is to grow your email list and to accelerate your growth that way, then we definitely want to make sure that we take that money that you would be investing in a completely new channel and investing in advertising, because we know from your analytics, and we know from how you're getting your clients, that email works for you, and we know Facebook and Instagram works for you as a channel. So I think that it's really important for us to really kind of, stay focused on the goal, and to also understand what is actually moving the needle in our business. Because there's a lot of things that we can do in marketing that aren't actually moving the needle. They're just fun things to do, or they're just nice, or people just enjoy doing them. But when I come in and we dig into the analytics, that's really where we start to really see like, okay, what is it that is moving our growth forward? If Instagram is not working, why are we prioritizing all this time and effort and money on Instagram, right? Like if, LinkedIn is working for us as a channel, why are we not investing in ads on LinkedIn? Why are we not investing in, hiring a coach or hiring someone to help us to actually, do LinkedIn better? I think that that's really a really good approach for business owners, like what you were saying.
Oh my gosh, that's so good, Stacey. I have the same approach with my clients too, from the finance perspective. Is this working for you? Like, or how's that working out, right? We need to set our goals, and then we need to work towards the goal. And even if you don't see something right away, right, you need to stick to the plan. So just like you probably are, kind of coaching your clients towards what needs to happen and keeping them on track, I have to do the same thing as well. Yeah. Are we hitting our target markets? We're using that data, right? Like the key performance indicators, the information that we're finding in our financial reports to plan how we're going to operate in the future. So it's very similar. I think it's so interesting, the intersectionality between like money and marketing. I think that this is such a good conversation. And I hope that everyone that's listening is putting money towards their marketing in their budget, or they're working towards it, because it's very important to grow and scale your business. And so I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. I love that the way that it works on your side is very similar to the way that it works on my side. So this is a really great conversation to have. And I think it's timely too. Very much timely.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that means everybody needs to hire both of us, because then we can work together. And then we can really take y'all to the next level. So let me ask you one last question before we kind of start to close out. What are some of the mistakes that you see clients making when they're approaching creating a marketing budget?
Oh, goodness. So one thing I would say is either putting too much money towards something that they haven't tested yet, or not putting enough money towards it. So like you mentioned, it's going to take a period of time to kind of ramp up those ads. It's going to take some time to see what comes back with those analytics and the dashboards and all the things, on the Facebook Messenger or Business Manager side of all the things. I think that because we don't see an immediate result, a lot of times we think that it's not working, like you mentioned. And the thing, or the key, is that you have to keep consistently showing up. You have to keep consistently doing the things that we're advising, right, for them to start to see that return on the investment. So it's really just understanding that you do need to put some money towards it, and then also being patient and letting the actual results come to fruition before you start to zigzag to other forms of advertising or whatever else it is that you're looking to do.
Yeah, I love that, because that's same here. Like I see people, either they're so invested in organic marketing that they are burning themselves to the ground. Because the platforms are not, they're skewing in the way of advertising. They want us to advertise. That's how they make their money. And so the organic algorithms just are not as powerful as they used to be. It takes a lot more time, a lot more effort, a lot more posts to actually start to get the results that you got even like last year or 2 years ago. And so I see people who are just like, well, I'm going to spend more money, or I mean, more time creating more content and showing up on social media more and posting more, rather than saying like, hey, let me actually just, maintain the pace, the posting schedule that I'm on because it's working for me. But when I want to accelerate, then I start to invest in advertising. I take some money and start to invest in ads to accelerate what I'm already doing, rather than approaching it as a way of, let me hold on to my coins and not let my coins go because I need to see them. And if I don't see them, then they're not really there. And like you said, I see people not spending enough on advertising. As I mentioned, like, if you're making a significant amount of money and you're, spending money on you're not spending a good amount of money on your advertising, it's not going to it's not going to look like it's doing much for your business, because comparatively, it just doesn't make sense. And so you need to make sure you're spending enough money and you're giving the algorithm enough money and time to actually find your people. Definitely take some time and some testing and some massaging of your messaging. It takes some, tweaking of your funnel. It takes some time to really kind of figure out what that exact pathway from, and the average person that's in consuming Facebook, to really finding those premium buyers for you. And they may be more expensive to get in touch with, especially like if you're running ads in, to people who live in affluent areas or something like that. Like if you're spending money running ads to people who live in California and live in New York, these places are more expensive for you to advertise in those places. So you need to make sure you're spending enough money to be able to find those people and to give Facebook enough space to find the people. I see a lot of people giving up on ads way too early because they're not, they're not seeing that immediate return. And so they're like, oh, this is just not working. But really, you need to if you're not intentionally testing, if you're not giving the algorithm enough money and enough space to find your people, then you're not going to see success regardless of how much you're spending. So you have to be very intentional with approaching advertising from a way of looking at it in a long-term strategy, but then also looking at it as, a way looking at it in a sense that your money may not come right back the next day or the next week. But when you do get that person that does convert into a client, that may you return all of the money that you spent in advertising, but you had to do the testing and the trying this out to actually get there. So I think that people definitely give up a little too early for sure.
Probably so. And I can tell you, I've probably been, guilty of that at some point too. Because I'm like, I don't know, this is working. And Facebook's not going to keep taking my little monies.
I know. Yeah. That's what a lot of people, that's what you feel like, this isn't working. I don't see anything working. I don't see, the return. But then it's like you give up way too soon, because you have to look at it as like, your organic posts and things that you're posting on Facebook and Instagram are reaching a limited, very targeted amount of people who've engaged with you before, people who see your stuff all the time. Those are the people who are seeing all your posts organically. And so it may be easier to flip those people because they're seeing your stuff all the time. But if you're thinking about the average person on Facebook who lives across the country, has no idea who you are, does not even know you exist, right? Like you're able to reach them in an accelerated fashion, which is amazing, but they don't know you. So you have to give them time to get to know you, get them time to consume all your content, and to give them time. And you have to be able to show up for when people are actually ready to actually buy from you. You have to stay top of mind. And that's one of the things ads helps you to do. So I think this has been definitely a great conversation. I think everybody has had a lot of great stuff to think about when it comes to marketing budgets. Anything else you want to add or you feel like we didn't cover before we close out when it comes to this topic?
So I think one thing I kind of forgot to mention when we talked about formulating that budget. So I think that because, typically it takes a little bit of time for those ads to really start working, it's probably realistic to save at least 3 to 6 months worth of advertising funds before you can really start to see, that growth or, the engagement that you're looking for. So again, if that's what you're looking for, then we work backwards, right? So after we've paid ourselves, after we've saved, after we've, put aside money for taxes, with the remaining money that we have left over, can we set aside 3 to 6 months worth of Facebook, or marketing funds? And like you said, you recommend $15 a day. Let's say we're a little bit earlier in our stages of business. Would you say that $5 a day would be, realistic to get some sort of traction, or would you still stick with the $15 a day?
I would say, so here's what I think about when it comes to ad budgets and let me tell you, this is how Facebook charges people. And I say this because it'll make sense. So the way that Facebook charges people is by cost per 1,000 impressions. And so Facebook is going to say, hey, I'm going to charge you $5 in order for you to show your ad, for people to see your ad 1,000 times. And if you think about, spending $5 a day, that really only gets you to visibility of like 1,000 people a day, a little less than 1,000 people a day, because people are going to see it multiple times. That's really not that many people. When you think about the grand scheme of how many people there are on Facebook, there are 2.8 billion monthly active users on Facebook. So there's lots of people here. And so you need to give the algorithm space to be able to figure out who are your people, because that's essentially what it's doing. It's starting to run, it's starting to show your ads to people who it thinks would likely give you the most, the conversion or the result that you want. But it has to sift through a lot of people in order to find those people. And so it's always your Facebook account is always sending signals back and forth between Facebook and your website. Is this the right person? Nope. Let's find somebody else. If this is the right person, they converted into a lead. Ooh, let's find more people like that. So if you think about how Facebook charges, you think about how it's delivering your ads, $5 a day is very limited. And then you also have to take into account that like lead generation campaigns and sales campaigns cost more money than, let's say, a boosted post. A boosted post is the least expensive ad that you can run. And the reason it's so inexpensive is because the goal of a boosted post is to keep people on the platform. It's just to get people to like it, comment, share, and keep on scrolling, right? And so if you're telling Facebook, hey, I want you to, run an ad campaign that's going to get people off your platform, Facebook is like, okay, I'm going to charge you more for that. I'm going to charge you more to get someone to leave my platform and become a lead, or to leave my platform and actually become a sale, versus someone who's just going to stay on the platform and keep on scrolling, because that person is going to likely see more ads. It's less expensive. And so $5 a day, if you're running lead generation campaigns, I don't think it's going to cut it. I really do think that, but there are times when I would say $5 a day would help. Like when I teach my students about running visibility ads. And so visibility ads help to build an audience. So it takes your existing content, your podcast, your blogs, your live videos, your reels, and it starts to put it out there into Facebook land and to show it to people. And what happens is when someone on Facebook actually sees that ad, they start to get to know who you are, then that puts them into another audience that actually is going to send them lead generation campaigns. So it's kind of like, I'm giving you something, I'm giving you some really great information, and then I'm asking you to then, sign up for a lead magnet or something like that, secondary, rather than being the primary focus. And so in that sense, I'm like, okay, visibility ads, $5 a day. If you're running ads to your warm audience, so it's people who've engaged with your Instagram, people who've engaged with your Facebook, people who have visited your website, you can spend a little bit less. But if you're trying to get cold traffic and you're trying to get people who don't know who you are and you want to give the algorithm enough space, that's when I recommend $15 a day. And it really can be you running a couple different campaigns and it equaling out to be $15 a day. It doesn't necessarily have to say like one campaign is at $15, another campaign is at $15. You can have a visibility campaign running for $5, and then that rest of that $10 is spent on lead generation campaigns. And so that gets you that $15 a day. It kind of diversifies how you're spending. So yeah, so that's what I would say to that, right? Like $5 a day, it's not necessarily like a hard and fast rule that no, it works, that yes, it works, or no, it doesn't work. But it's more so if you're thinking about like, what are you trying to accomplish? And how are you being strategic with how you're spending that $15 a day? That is when you're really going to start to really see the power.
Definitely. So I would venture to say that it's an investment. Yeah. So it's really being intentional about putting that money aside so that you can invest in your business.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, we really just need to start to understand that, one, marketing costs money, and two, that we need to be very strategic about it. So tell everybody how they can work with you if they are like, hey, I really want to learn more about your CFO services or your tax strategy services. Oh, and also one thing before I tell you that ads are a tax write-off, right? Like I'm asking the pro here. Yeah. So ads are definitely a tax write-off, y'all. So keep that in mind, that even if you are spending it, you can write it off. So
yes. Definitely a tax write-off. So that's the benefit, right? It's an investment, but you will get that back during tax season. So absolutely. People can work with me in a number of different ways. We can do the fractional CFO services, which is what we were talking about. So the budgeting, the forecasting, the planning for the future, or we can do strategic tax planning services. So now that we've made this big money, how do we keep more of it in our pockets instead of giving it to the IRS? So those are the two main ways. Or you can do a combination of the two services if that's what you desire. And you can absolutely reach me at malloygroupinc.com. And I'm happy to put my information in the chat. And I just look forward to talking to everybody. Whatever questions you have, if I can support you in any way, shape, or form, shoot me a DM as well. And I'm looking forward to just connecting with everyone.
Yeah, definitely, y'all. So definitely make sure y'all go check the replay or check the comments for the links. If you are interested in working with me, one thing that I have just recently rolled out is our ad sprint, where we will set up your ads for you. And so what we do in that, and when we have our kickoff, is we talk about budgets and we figure out like what is the right budget for your particular campaign and what you're trying to accomplish. So if you are looking to have someone set your ads up for you, and train your team on how to take over and eventually be able to run this in-house yourself, definitely make sure you reach out to me, send me a DM so we can talk about how I can help you to get your ads set up the right way, how to make sure you're spending the right money, and to make sure that your creative looks right, your copy's on point. Because one of the things I see that happens a lot is your campaigns are just not set up correctly anyway. And so you're not even giving it a chance to really kind of, get the results that you want. So send me a DM if that's something that you are interested in. But yeah, this has been a great conversation. If you're watching the replay, let us know. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop some questions in the comments. We'll be sure to get back to y'all and make sure we answer those. But yeah, thanks again, Patrice, for coming on. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I look forward to connecting again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. There's the link there, y'all. It's in the chat. And I put it up on the screen just in case you want to take a quick look at it. But yeah, we'll definitely talk to y'all a little later.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
OMG, that episode was packed with gems. Are you ready for more? Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast to get the show notes and to sign up to get our top 5 podcast episodes to help you streamline your marketing so you can make this your $1 million year. Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast.